law regarding the use of force in Scotland and Ireland may be worded slightly differently, but they all stem from English law. Section 3, paragraph 1 of the Criminal Law Act 1967 states, "A person may use such force as is reasonable in the circumstances and prevention of a crime, or in effecting or assisting in a lawful arrest of offenders or suspected persons unlawfully at large." You're allowed to use such force as is reasonably necessary to defend yourself, defend others, protect your property, and to make a citizen's arrest. The interpretation of such force used depends upon the gravity of the crime being prevented, whether it was possible to prevent it by non-violent means, whether you were willing to try those means first, and the relative strength of the parties involved. To make the law clearer, I'm going to place you in a cafe scenario. There's only one way in and one way out, and the cafe is too narrow to move about much. There are hardly any other people in the cafe. A man walks in and, looking right at you, shouts, "I'm going to knock your block off." With clenched fists, he approaches you and he punches you in the jaw. He walks away. Can you chase after him and defend yourself? Well, if you did, you may be able to argue that you're making a citizen's arrest, but it's likely that the courts will deem your actions to be an assault. It can't be self-defence because the man was walking away from you, so you've nothing to defend yourself against. A judge or a procurator fiscal will usually ask, "Did you feel threatened?" And if you can prove that you did, you have the right to defend yourself. If you can't prove this, or the judge or procurator fiscal does not think that you could have felt threatened, it's not self-defence. So let's change the scenario slightly. Same cafe, same man, he still shouts, "I'm going to knock your block off." With clenched fists, he approaches you and he punches you in the jaw. But this time, he shouts, "There's more where that came from." He raises his hand to strike again. Now can you defend yourself? Did you feel threatened? Yes, you can defend yourself now. So in the eyes of the law, you need to wait until your attacker strikes you before you can defend yourself, right? Wrong. You're allowed to defend yourself if you feel threatened and there's no other means of escape, and you try to prevent the attack by non-violent means first, before you defend yourself. So the question is, when did you feel threatened? Same cafe, same man. He shouts aggressively, "I'm going to knock your block off." And as he storms towards you, you raise your arms in a defensive pose and you shout, "Get back," at the top of your voice. He still comes at you and you were forced to defend yourself. You struck first. He's not touched you yet, but his intention to strike you made you feel threatened. And after trying to stop him by non-violent means failed, you were forced to strike him and stop the attack. That's self-defense. Hopefully this example has helped clarify when you can and cannot defend yourself, and by association when you can and cannot defend others. To help explain the relative strength of the parties involved, let me introduce you to Boris and Doris. Boris is a rather large, muscle-bound male, while Doris is a small, frail, elderly lady. Now, if Doris decided to attack Boris, what can Boris do to defend himself? Well, as her blows would be relatively ineffectual, Boris could simply put his hand on Doris's head and hold her back. What if the roles were reversed then? What if Boris decided to attack Doris? Well, Doris might not get very far defending herself with just her hands and her feet, so she might have to use an improvised weapon, such as her umbrella.